to distribute the links for those who maybe didn't get the notification. Give me 1 minute. Let's
Sure.
see. Right, put it in the Slack channel. All right. Awesome. Benjamin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. End of my day. We closed a few clients today. No, it's
Congrats.
great.
That's a
No,
good day.
yeah, it's a great
That's
day.
awesome, man. I appreciate
Yeah,
you taking some time. Where are you calling from today again? Remind me.
Switzerland. I call
Switzerland?
from a small village with like 60 people.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it a good village like your last name?
Yeah, I love it. I think I was at the doctor today and we had a little chit chat about how great this village is because like without going into too much details, the village surrounding, like there's a lot of like ski resort, and even the mountain, right? So there's a lot of ski resort, big buildings, but people from this village have been fighting for the last like 100 years to not build anything in the village. So there's only chalets, and it's still very small. I mean, you could guess it's 50 people, but like they had the occasion to build like a station, and they said no, we don't want one, which is very uncommon in this region because people wanted to make money with ski and they said no, which I think is pretty fucking cool.
Very cool, man. Hopefully one day I'll get to kind of come out there. But for
For sure.
now, I'm going to be handing it over to you. You're going to be talking today about pitch deck's mistakes, the mistakes that 99% of people make. Super cool topic because if the story isn't straight, if the presentation isn't good, nobody,
Mhm.
that's it. That's your chance to kind of sell your product, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going, I think you have a presentation to share. I'm going to cue that in
Yep.
now. And then I'm going to basically fade away into the background so that I'm not a distraction and I'll put myself on mute. But if something happens, tech issue, just let me know, okay?
Great. Well, let's get started then. So, guys and girls, I'm super happy that you guys joined today. We just do that. We just do pitch decks, and I spend my day looking at pitch decks, and some of them are good, but most of them are trash. And my promise is that in the next 30 minutes, if you follow the few advice I give you, you'll be in the top 90%. It's blow my mind. It blows my mind like how simple it is, but it's not simple. Don't get me wrong. I think it takes some practice to make a pitch deck, but there's a few things that I'm going to show you today that will dramatically increase your chance to raise. Because at the end of the day, what's a pitch deck? A pitch deck is just a communication document from your brain to the investor brain, and it's like communication issues. And usually, why pitch deck is bad is because people struggle to communicate. So let's get started. So first thing, my name is Benjamin de Bonville from Switzerland, as Dave mentioned. We run pitchdeckcreators.com, which is an agency. The name kind of, kind of imply it. We do pitch deck, and that's pretty much it. So let's get started. Pitch deck deadly mistakes. The first one, and if there's really one thing you have to remember from this presentation, is do your headlines. Have headlines in your pitch deck. So what does that look like? Well, I'll show you what it doesn't look like. This is a pitch deck that I reviewed today, for example. And you look at this and imagine this is every time I repeat the same thing in my reviews. I do a lot of reviews, pitch deck reviews. And this is the same thing I always say. Like if you look, and I really repeat myself on those reviews because most people do the same mistake. Like if you look at this, you're overwhelmed. There's so much information at once, like beyond the fact that there's a lot of text. Like where do you start? Like this is supposed to be a problem. So I'm like, where? Like you can't at a glance you can't understand what's the problem. So how can we improve that? Well, this is what we've done, and I'm sure that you looked at that and you didn't even read it. You're like, oh fuck, what is it? But here's the change. Boom, you have a title, and maybe here the title could be a bit bigger, but here we have creators at the mercy of social platform to make a living. Boom. If you want to read the rest of the text here, and if you, I mean, here in this case the VC, they can, but the idea is that your decks should be skimmable. Like it's very important to keep in mind that VC will spend only 1 to 2 minutes on your pitch deck. It's not a lot of time. And so if you give them this, no way they're gonna read it. Because just this take about, I don't know, 20 seconds. Like maybe 20% of the time they will spend on the whole pitch deck. I think that's crazy, no? The second thing is not having a consistent structure. Again, your pitch deck should be built, and you'll see I repeat myself because it's really a few points, but I really want to hammer down for you guys to remember. Not the consistent structure. Think about when you create a pitch deck, you should focus on how do I make it the most easy to consume. And here, for this one, I didn't take a bad example, but I'll show you a deck with a sign. Like here, if you look at it, there is always the same structure. Headlines at the top and then the rest. Headline at the top and then the rest. Headline at the top and then the rest. And here, if you are VC and you just read that, I'll do the exercise. Insurance is a thriving sector in the region and spending it by 10% annually. However, the industry is far from reaching its potential. Because the infrastructure is not digitized, insurance can't work with new potential clients. Our API connects companies and insurers. We create new revenue stream for both sides. I just spent like, I don't know, 10 seconds. We went over, maybe not 10 seconds, I'm exaggerating here, but let's say 20 seconds. And I went over like 4 slides. And I'm sure that now you're like, wow, I understand what this product does. Like in just a few seconds. And then the point here is that if you want to look at the nice infographic that we're doing, you can. You give the opportunity to the VC to take a deeper look. The way I compare it is with newspaper. Like if you just, it's in my trash right now, but if you just pick a newspaper and just skim through it and just at this distance, you see like there's title, there's headline, there's things that catch your attention. If you just read those headlines, you can capture the information. And if you pick a newspaper and on the street, you just spend, just before going to the metro, you open it, you read the headlines, and boom, like in 1 minute, you get the news of the day. Your pitch deck should be the same. So let's move on to the next point, which is not visualizing number. And this effort to make your pitch deck, I haven't mentioned it, but if you guys have questions at any point, any reflection, please share. I'll be happy to answer on the spot or towards the end of the session. So here, not visualizing numbers. What does that mean? Well, again, if you just have a wall of text like I showed before, it's really hard to consume. Or if you have something that look like this. Well, that's beyond, because here there's usually on every slide is a combination of problems. But here, I think this is an interesting slide because there's a potential. Well, as you can see, the title is not really at the top right, which I usually at top left, what I usually like to do because people read from left to right. But that's kind of beyond the point here. But here you have like 75% of women wear size plus 12. And here you can read at the bottom, like clothing available at luxury fashion site near Porter. Well, basically luxury clothes. And you can see that there's a discrepancy. Like there's much more women that wear things size plus 12, but at the end of the day, there's no luxury clothes tailored for them. And when I saw that, so I was like, fuck, that's a missed opportunity. Like we have two groups that we could visualize. Because when I see that, it's true, I look at the 75%, and then I see that there's something that doesn't match, but I think this could be visualized better. And it's not I think, because we did it. And here, when you look at that slide, I saw that when I exported that, somehow the lines didn't align here. So forget about that. The line should be aligned here. But my point here is that now I took the two graph and we put it one on top and one on the bottom. And here, visually, you can see, like at a glance, you can see that this is much bigger than this. You're like, fuck, there must be a problem here. And I'm not saying that it's so easy to do. I think actually part of our work is like, this is what I think to be the hardest, but this is what I would spend the most time on is, okay, I have a bunch of text. How do I make it more visual? And usually the triggers, do I have numbers? And if I have numbers, how can I represent numbers? Maybe it's a pie chart. Maybe it's a bar chart. And if I have two numbers, you have to think about, and that's, and again, I'm not saying that's easy, but now that you know it, actively think about it, because I'm sure most of you guys have a pitch deck. So go back to your pitch deck and think like, okay, I have those numbers. What those numbers means? how does the number work together? And so here, for example, we had a percentage of women and we have a percentage of clothes. Maybe we're going to put them on top of, like, we can visualize those numbers. Another example, I received that. And here again, like, we have two parts. We have in here, I think also it's I didn't put it here it was not on purpose, I put it here, but let's have a look at this. Less than 10% of the population has entrances. Only 20% of SMB have any entrances. You see how this doesn't make a lot of sense, how one is describing one that have and one that haven't. And so here you have to be very careful about how you write to make always the text always be in the same have it consistent. Like, don't avoid double negative like here. Now you have this slide, and from that slide we transform there. So what we saw like, hey, maybe there's those two like people that two category that lack entrances. Boom, we transform that in a pie chart. And then here, and you may not even had the time to read that, or you did, but you're like, what the fuck? And so here we visualize it. And really, and again, I know this ain't super easy to do, but if you can put it off, I think that's the real difference. Okay, next point. Not having sub headlines. And so we've been doing pitch deck for, like, actually it's funny, we've been doing pitch deck for less than a year. We started in January, just me and my wife, and now we're like 10. And it's funny because in this short amount of time, like, we learned so much about pitch deck. Like, we've seen a lot. And what I realized is, at the beginning I was like, well guys, you can't put a lot of text on a pitch deck. And I kind of rolled back on that statement. What do I mean by that? I mean that today I believe that it's okay to have a certain amount of text because some subject sometimes requires it. Like, for example, there's the kind of, hey, this is a new marketing tool for social media. Yeah, it's not so hard. You don't need a PhD to understand that. But some project, like we had some medtech, biotech companies, like, hey, it's more complex and it's okay. But how do you deal with that? Well, usually what I see is this. Like here, a fat wall of text like this. And this ain't good, because if you want to, if you trying to capture the information, and that's always what I say, is like, here, to get the information of the paragraph, I have to read the whole paragraph. And so maybe you can see, because here is kind of spoiling, but here, instead of having that full text, what we do is that we split it. We put a sub headline. And so with that sub headline, you can keep the text that describe in more detail if you want to go in more detail. But at least if I want to get information in a faster manner, like for example here, I can read that subtitle, and this help again. The main idea is to be able to skim fast, to make your deck skimmable, and here it make it more skimmable. Next. Okay, writing. Okay, I got scared. I thought I repeated myself, but writing too much text. And so that's what I said. Like, here is a prime example. This is a deck we actually received today to review, and I was like, wow. And it's okay. Like, everyone does his first pitch deck. There's, when you don't know, you don't know, and it's always about that. But like, you can't. And I know I stressed that before, but I want to say it again. Like, you can't expect a VC. Let me just describe how it works. Like, it's feel very teachery, but let me give you a glance at how it looks from the other side. Because we spoke to a lot of VCs, we built our VC networks to understand like, what do they think about pitch deck? What's their own workflow? Because then if we understand their workflow, we can make better pitch deck that match their workflow. And basically, the day of an analyst is just spending his day in his emails, opening pitch deck and going through them. And so, and the problem is that the quality varies. Sometimes you have very good pitch deck, and we have very good bad ones. And so if suddenly you go from, I don't want to do my own horn, but if you go from having this, where you have a headline, there's not a lot to read, you can understand fast, and then you arrive to this, you don't want to read. Like, I mean, put yourself in their shoes. Like, Fuck, like I don't want to read that. And I think that what maybe saddened me, it's a bit too strong, but I think there's a disconnect in the industry because unfortunately there's very good companies but with terrible pitch deck, and those companies they never make it because they don't know how to communicate. And so usually it doesn't mean that you're usually there's the content. If you have a deck that needs some work, the content is here, but how you display the information is not there. And so my advice is when you design a pitch deck, try not to have like your first of all your deck should be your deck should be understandable by just reading the headline. That's the first one. And then when you want to put a lot of text, this is an extreme. This is really like the extreme out of the extreme. I would say that to give you a ballpark, this is the maximum that you should aim for. And even here, we did that deck, and I think there's a bit too much. I think we save it because we have headlines, but even though I think this is a bit too much. Then this is again this project in particular is a complex financial product, and so it's complex. And so when it's more complex, if you want, because splitting the certain process in multiple slides can create more confusion. So, but yeah, this is as far as you can go in terms of text. Okay, so writing the bunch check, we got it. Using jargon here, I don't have a specific bad or good example. It's just that I always say to my team, and like, and sometimes I'm really redundant with that, but remove obvious from your vocabulary. Like, there's nothing obvious. And even though, let's say you're in MedTech, and like, you're gonna send your pitch deck to MedTech Fund, and you're like, well, they're MedTech analysts, they should know about this. But the reality is that in MedTech, you have hand surgery, you have hip surgery, you have cardiac surgery, you have alternative medicine, you have like, this is just to name like a few. There's a billion. So every niche has a sub niche, and every sub niche has a sub niche. And so the text you put on your pitch deck. And this is actually relevant. I usually say that there's not a lot of thing I like about Donald Trump. But, well, personal opinion. Wow, I'm not often speaking to American crowd. I'm from Switzerland, so political bias apart. What I really like about what he does, and I think this is beyond political view, is that this guy speak with a vocabulary of like 200-300 words. Like, it's impossible not to understand the dude. Like, it's you can try not to understand. It's not possible. You're bad faith. Like, he used simple words, and like even the slogan is amazing. Make America again. Like, beyond the political view. Like, it's so powerful with such simple words. And on your pitch deck, even if you don't like the guy or you love the guy, like, try to use words that are super simple. Like, if you have kids, your daughter or like your boy of like 12, 10, he should be able to understand what you do. Like, or your grandma or your mom, you should be able to give the pitch deck, and it should be like, oh yeah, makes sense. The same way I showed you before. Like, the which one I show you? I think this is a deck I always come back to because I think here we did a really good work. Because the infrastructure is not digitized, insurance can't work with new potential clients. Like, boom! Like, it's such an easy statement to understand. And since we here and we don't have actually so much time, but I still like to make here kind of a bonus here. Here, what I really like what we've done about the headline is that we have, because the infrastructure is not digitized, the cause, and then insurance can't work with new potential client. Impact. Cause, impact. This is something super important for your problem. Cause, impact. And then for your solution side, you have the solution, our API connect companies and insurers, and then you have benefit. We create a new revenue stream for both sides. Cause, impact, solution, benefit. Boom. Like, you have that. And like, if you just do that after this call, you take your product, your problem and solution type, and you just modify that. that will make it worth listening to me for like 20 minutes. Okay, so let's get back. Where were we? No headline, too much, boom, jargon. Now, what we have, only string years of effective variance. So this is a big one. This is also something we received today. Um, Here, like, what's the goal of the team slide? The goal of the team slide is to, and I could do that for all the slide, but really the goal of the team slide is to answer one question, maybe two. The first one is, what's so impressive about you that makes it so much sense that you do what you do? Like, it should come as a, damn, those guys, they're doing their startup, and it makes so much sense. Like, I couldn't see anyone else doing that. Example, those guys, for example, they work in healthcare. He has experience selling to healthcare providers, and he have a deep understanding of healthcare because he worked in a health related company. The other guy, he builds software, so they know. And this is I put it here because I think we did a great job here. We know how to sell it, and we know how to build it. Boom! Like, it's clear as water. Like, and yeah, I think this is what you should achieve here. Your team slide should answer the question, should tell the investor, wow, like, those guys, they made something according to their background. They know what they're speaking about. And I think here the problem that we have here is that here it's just a wall of text, and it's not really specifying why they do what they do. Now, the last point, design. And so I hope by now you'll understand that I haven't really mentioned design at all. And the reason for that is that when we speak about, oh, can you design my pitch deck? What does it mean? And this is something we have to fight as an agency to educate our clients, is that design is just making something pretty. But usually people like combine design and information design. Information design is what I showed you before, right? It's like visualizing number. But this is two different things. If you give your deck to a designer, it will make it pretty. If you give it to an information designer or company like ours, we will like transform word into design, into like creating infographic. However, the design is in my opinion is important. For me, it's like it's like dressing well. Like, well, bad example, look at my hoodie, but well, I'm in Switzerland in the mountains, so I guess I can. But you're and I think this is a great analogy, right? Maybe I arrive with this hoodie, you're like, who's this guy? Like, what the fuck is doing? What is this background? Like, and maybe the first impression was like, maybe not so professional, not super well shaved. So you made your impression. But then you had to stick with me, and you're still here. And so you're like, oh wow, actually this guy's know what he's speaking about. And so the impression of me speaking kind of took over, and it was not like, and now you made an opinion based on something else than just what you can see. But that's because you stayed with me 20 minutes, right? And also, if you left, if you left, I mean, people are left. And so the point I'm trying to make here is that it's okay, right? But the thing is, when you send your pitch deck to an investor, like, you're not being evaluated in a vacuum. Like, you evaluated with like 10 other, 15 other pitch deck that he's seen that day. And so if you're the deck 14 and he opens it and his eyes are burning, you're like, fuck, I don't want to look at that. Like, it's annoying. I don't want. And the problem that I see is that, like, it's really easy to rationalize. Those guys, they have a terrible deck. Like, why would I waste my time? They don't understand that it's important. Like, And so here, and since the experience of looking at the deck for a first time for a VC is so short, it's like 1 or 2 minutes, having a great design just give you more chance. So what's the recipe for a good design? To be honest, it's not that complicated. The first thing is, don't use too much colors. Use icons that work together, and make your slide consistent. Like, you can see, and I'm saying this, and this is online, so bad work, Benjamin. But I hope you get the idea. The goal here is to have something that look the same. Don't use too much color. Use the same icons. I could show you an example, but like, this is simple fix. A few fonts, not a lot, like one or two colors, and keep the slide like let the slide breathe. Here, a few advice that I put here is um, only use 3 color in the deck. Usually this is what I use. For example, here we use black, white, and orange, and this kind of illustration here. That makes it easy. Use 2 fonts. So here, for example, we have like a more, not fancy, we call that display font. Is font that are a bit more a bit more out there. And then you can use a more simple font that we use here. Use different font size. I think that's super important. Like this is something that I kind of mentioned before, but it's important to have hierarchy. Like the title should be the biggest, and then you have your sub headline, and then your description. But beyond that, and there's this exception, but usually you want to stick with that. And in terms of the amount of text on the slide, usually I would try to keep for 70 word, but that's kind of a out of the hat bucket. It doesn't reflect all the time, but it's just like a rule of thumb. And the last thing, which is, and I think we have a bit of time. I have a bit of time after, so if you guys have questions, I'll be happy to answer. The last thing, which is not really about the design or the creation of your deck, but more like if you're about to raise, you need traction, and especially today, and I think traction comes in different forms. The most common form of traction that people understand is like showing that your company has clients, has users, has you name it, has something that show that people care about it. And there's only one exception that makes it that you don't need that traction. And that exception is like we just onboarded a new client and he sold for over 50 million of his company. Like he sold 4 company for a total of like 30, 40 million. He don't need traction because his traction is his personal background. But if you don't have that, well, maybe you don't need to have 40 million companies sold. Maybe just 1 or 2 would work. But if you don't have that, you need to have traction. And it's for the same reason. I think it's very easy to understand. Today, there's still a lot of company raising. I mean, we're making a business out of it, so I can tell you there's a lot of company raising, but investors are fearful. They don't want to. They are more fearful to invest because the market is uncertain. It doesn't. They have money, but they require more. And so the thing is, the game has changed. Right now, it used to be that in pre-seed you didn't need traction, but now you do because everybody, since it's harder to raise, everybody's trying to be in a better place. So the competition is harder. There's a bunch of other things that I could say today, but we only had 30 minutes. But really, if you can take home one thing, is headlines, really headlines. And you could fuck up everything else in your deck, but if you have like a 14-word sentence for each slide, and we have a blog, you can have a look and we list of all the slides that you need, but just here in a nutshell, introduction, problem, why now, solution, product, go-to-market strategy, competition, market size, business model. I'm saying fast, but ask a team. In all of those, just have 14-word headline, and you're fucking good. And I think that's it. Thank you for your attention. And yeah, I think we're right on time, but I still have a couple of minutes. So if you guys have any question, I'd be happy to answer.
Awesome, Benjamin. Yeah, appreciate you kind of walking us through that. It's it's huge to really kind of see the before and after, and you kind of see like this is a slide that somebody thought was okay, and then you see how different and how much better it can look. You very quickly, I think, kind of touched upon what my question was going to be, which is kind of like the average length of a pitch deck presentation and what are some of the most common slides. Maybe repeat that just in case someone missed it.
Sure. So the typical narrative, and it can change, but a typical narrative is introduction. So a slide where you say like, here we do X, Y, Z. Problem, explaining what problem you're trying to solve. Why now? Why it's the right moment to act on that opportunity. Solution. So how are you going to solve the problem that you said? Product. Product is kind of going how your solution work. And then the order of the next one is kind of, maybe if you give me a second, I have a slide somewhere. I have a slide somewhere that I can find. Workshop pitch deck. This is the old workshop that I did. Okay, here. I think this is a great this is a great slide to show that. Introduction, problem, why now, solution, product. And after that, it's about what you have. There's it depends, really it depends. Sometime we start with competition, sometimes we go to market strategies, sometime it depends. So here, competition, go to market strategy, market size, traction, and what we're missing here is business model. Super important. Ask, and then a contact page. And on that, I think something that, well, I don't watch a lot of video about how to make a pitch deck, obviously, because we do that ourselves. But so I don't know if it's something that is out there or not. But I think the magic is when you manage to bring multiple slides together. For example, maybe you can mix your market size with your business model. Maybe there's part of your traction that it can be mixed with your go-to-market strategy. So if you can make this connection, and that makes sense, I think that's always great. And so in terms of length, we look at nothing. It depends where you are. If you are looking for a seed round, like if you're looking for pre-seed and a seed round, you wouldn't want to go above a 15 slide. For Series A, it's a different game because you have a lot of more numbers. You have to present where you are, and then also it depends industries. If you look at like deep tech companies, they can go Series A and still have zero numbers because they haven't gone to market yet. So depends, but I would imagine that you guys watching don't go over 15 slide. And a little caveat to that, if you really want to, have appendix. But I think the downside of having appendix is that when someone going to look at your deck, he's going to look at the number of page. Like if he's on DocSend or he's download the PDF, he's going to look at the page. And if you see like 32 pages, he's going to be like, fuck, I'm not reading that. So be careful with that.
Awesome, man. Question from Donovan. He asked about, if you could expound a little bit on the team bracket slide that you guys have.
Yeah.
So
expand
expand a little bit more on that one.
Sure. So again, when someone look at your team, glad you liked it. When you look at your team, when an investor, put yourself in the investor shoes. When you look at the team, you just seen the problem, the solution, blah, blah, blah. And I always say that the team is a weapon because you arrive to your team slide. And so when someone, the feeling of investor looking at a team slide should be like, fuck, those guys, it makes so much sense that they do this. Like, this is what it should trigger. And so I don't know where you are in your journey of entrepreneurship. And I don't know if you're pre-seed, seed, idea stage, but if you're idea stage and you're still like wondering what project, or maybe you have multiple projects you're working on, choose the one that your background makes a lot of sense. Like choose because I think this is something you can't change. Like for example, me, with my experience, it would make so much sense if I build a tool to create pitch deck, like an AI tool to make pitch deck. And so they would arrive and be like, fuck, this guy, he created like 100+ pitch deck. For sure, makes sense that he know about this problem and he can solve it. But that would make no sense is tomorrow, I don't know, today I was thinking about, I was at the doctor, for example, today, and I had to wait 45 minutes to get an appointment. My appointment was 11, and I wait until 11:45, which broke my balls. I was like, there must be a solution for that. But am I the right person to solve that problem? Maybe not, And so when you arrive there, and also another advice about that is focus on achievements. So for example, if we take again my example, instead of saying, I run the pitch deck agency for 10 months. If I wanted to raise for that hypothetical product, you don't want to say that. You want to say what I've done during those 10 months that are super impressive. We worked over 30 pitch deck. We built a 6-figure agency in 10 months. Like we did like over 100 pitch deck reviews. We accumulated X amount of positive review. We did X amount of webinar for different partners. Like focus on the achievements, the wow factors. And I know if you're guys in marketing, like what's the wow factor? What is the thing you can say about? And this is the place to brag. Like this is the moment where we say like, I'm fucking good. I did X, Y, and Z, and it's fucking impressive. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, man, I think it does. Let's, I don't want to keep you too long. I'd love to just have you explain a little bit more about what it's like to work with you guys, like what to
Yeah,
expect, who it's for. Obviously, you guys create pitch decks, but it seems like people are
sure.
already coming with some raw form. So give us the elevator pitch.
Yeah, sure. So it's pretty simple. PitchDeckCreators.com. We do one thing. We do pitch deck, A to Z pitch deck creation. So basically, in 2 weeks, we get your pitch deck done. As I mentioned, as you can see today, making a pitch deck is hard. It takes time. It's not like you can do it yourself, but I think it's underappreciated the complexity of it. Even us that are professional, we spend about 30 to 40 hours for one pitch deck. The way we do it is that we'll start with a workshop together. And so, depending on the complexity of product, it can take anywhere between 2 and 4 hours. And the goal here is that we will dive in. And what I like to say is that we become mini expert on your topic. We learn about what you do. And then we have our team of expert starting on your pitch deck. At first, we design kind of a draft, putting the information design, like I showed you before, the numbers. Once we agree on that, we make the design. And then we have the second week to go more of a revision round. The only caveat to work with us is that we are full for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So I think the next possibility is on the 20. We only start with 2 clients per week on Mondays, and we have those strict timeline. Like we start on Monday because it's just make it easier for you to organize, for us, and we can make sure that we can actually deliver on time. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Awesome, man. Super cool service. Very unique. Was glad that we could kind of focus in on some very pertinent information for us. We have a little pitch presentation coming up later this month in person for the community. So we'll be sharing this with everybody who didn't, who's catch a recording and stuff like that. And thank you so much again for your time.
Sure, was nice.